What's up, all you real beasts? Magic Pat here, and we're doing another tackle review. Kind of wanted to talk about the rod and reel that we use to catch the sharks, so I already got it out. Get a quick look at it real quick, and let's get into this. So I changed locations. I came back up here to the office just to make it a little bit easier to talk about this thing. I know it's annoying seeing just a plain wall constantly when I do these reel reviews and rod reviews, but I should be changing location to do these, you know, somewhere different in the future. Give you something a little bit different to look at, because I know it's got to be boring, but this is the best place that I can do it at for right now. So I'm just going to get into this setup real quick. This is my medium setup for shark fishing. I know that sounds crazy, being that this reel is so big. I mean, you can see, compared to my hand, this reel is just, it's massive. It's really heavy. One of the things that you have to understand about shark fishing is to have a really good setup, it's going to be heavy. There's really no way of getting around that. You can start in smaller setups that are cheaper, but you're not going to catch anything huge, you know, really big. There's no middle ground, I guess you can say, because like smaller setup, like the Penn 4-aught that I used to use, which is about that big, like comparative to, you know, like this right here, was really fun for 3, 4, 5 foot sharks. It was really fun. But when you start hitting the 6 foot, 7 foot mark, it was not good enough anymore. It was getting smoked. It couldn't handle it. I lost a lot of really good fish. Then you get into this setup right here, which can handle a lot of really decent sized fish. You know, I'm not afraid to catch anything up to like 10 foot on this. But anything smaller than 5 feet, or actually anything smaller than 6 feet, is going to be basically just dragged in by this. This is a really heavy setup. This rod and reel together probably weighs close to 10 pounds or more. It's probably more, honestly. And then, of course, you got the line on it, which makes it heavier. This setup is a little bit more on the expensive side. You can go with cheaper options so you don't spend as much. Like originally, this reel, which is $360, $370 when I got it like 9 years ago, was on about a $150 rod. The most expensive part of the whole setup was the line. I think I had $200 worth of braid on this, and then it's probably another $50 or more in the mono on top, because it's about halfway in braid and then halfway in mono, so that gives me about 1,300 yards of 130-pound braid, and I think I have about 150 yards, maybe 175 yards of the 125 mono. But I went a little bit more expensive because I got a custom rod. So this rod was made by somebody I know down in Panama City. It's about a $500 rod, which also sounds probably ridiculous, but I had everything completely custom made on it. The type of blank that I wanted, how long I wanted the rod, the type of eyes on it, the type of rod butt. I wanted really, really strong stuff. The only modification I made is the handle right here. It kept getting tore up by the rod holders we were using, so I wrapped it in electrical tape. But that's just because it's going constantly in and out of rod holders. If I didn't use it for that, if it was just on a boat, it would have still been this same foam that you see right here, because this stuff feels great, especially when you're fighting a fish. So the reel itself gets about 35 pounds of drag max. If you lock it down, like completely lock it down to where it has no more free spool or anything, you could probably hit more than that. But you run the risk of bending the frame. I've seen them bend. I've seen the side plates come off. Because you got to think, when you're fighting a big shark, say you have a big giant hammerhead, which I've had before, and he's pulling 200, 300, 400 yards off in a matter of minutes. like 1 minute. That one that I had a long time ago was literally 200 yards ran in just a minute. These things get hot. Side plate gets hot. I've actually seen these reels smoke. I've seen smoke start coming off of them. But the good thing is, this older style Penn, they are strong. I mean, they are durable. You can get banged around, get salt, sand in them. The Star Drag right here, you can get sand and dust in it and everything. And I have seen them completely work, just splat full of sand, salt, rust. One of the guys that fished with us a couple of times, he never cleaned these reels. He would fish with them, throw them in his truck, leave them in there a couple of days, put them in his house. And, like, they just sounded terrible, and they would still work and catch fish. But I would, just keep in mind, though, that sooner or later it does have a breaking point. But other than that, this is a perfect medium shark setup. I have hooked bigger sharks, like the large, super large sharks. There gets to a point to where you catch a shark or you hook a shark so big that even this isn't big enough. Like, they just are steadily spooling it. You just see the line coming off the reel just nonstop, and there's nothing you can do. You have to get into the more expensive, like, Magnum shark fishing equipment to start handling those 12, 13, 14 footers. Up to 10 feet, this setup is perfect, though. You absolutely just manhandle anything under 5 feet. A 6-foot shark under is just basically whipped. You might get a little bit of a fight depending on the type of shark it is at 6 foot, like if it's a bull shark. But other than that, you're just basically going to crank them in. You don't have to go so expensive. You don't have to get the custom rod. You don't even have to get this if you want to. You could go with a cheaper, smaller reel set and catch sharks between the 5 and 3 foot mark. A little 3-foot shark can be fun on the right setup. A 5-foot shark sure as heck is fun on just about anything other than, like, giant equipment. But we were fishing off the beach with this. I used to use the pier, the handle on the pier, the railing, I should say. Basically, you would lean the rod up against the rail like this, and you would fight a shark this way. And I went years without needing a harness. But if you're going to fish off the beach for sharks like I do now, you're going to need a harness, because this setup is heavy by itself. It gets ridiculously heavy. As you've been fishing all day, all night, you get ready to go at the end of the night, and you've got to reel in a bait and a weight, which my weights weigh up to a pound, with spider legs, so they grab really hard. You've been fishing 8-9 hours, and you got to reel your stuff in 500-600 yards out. This setup gets really, really heavy real fast. So I would advise you to get a harness. Like, if you get started, it's expensive to get into shark fishing at the beginning, but then this equipment lasts you for years and years. So I have a harness now. That fight with that tiger shark was probably the most that I can do without a harness. The first 15 minutes was amazing. It was just the most fun watching him pull line off, and just a complete back and forth, just dead weight versus my weight pulling. After 15 minutes, my hands went numb and my forearms went numb up to about right here, and it wasn't fun anymore. My back started hurting really bad because my arms are going numb. I'm afraid I'm going to drop the rod, so I'm leaning back further, which is putting a weirder pinch point in my back. My hips start hurting because I'm kind of bent down in a almost in a sitting, squatting position, but the weight of the shark is holding me up. It's a lot to do. Woo! Lightning made me jump. It's really hard to do if you don't have a harness. So if I were you, I would get one. Makes it so much easier reeling in baits, reeling weights and stuff back in. This is one of my more favorite setups, just because I can take this just about anywhere. It's big, but it's not so big that if I put it in my truck or something, I can still easily hide this. Like if I need to go in to get something to eat or run into the store, I can put it inside my truck, cover it up, You know, you don't have to worry about people seeing it, like, busting out your window, because I've seen that happen to try to steal this equipment. However, I will be investing in bigger equipment one day. I do have bigger reels than this. You've seen them in videos before. And, of course, eventually I'm going to give y'all a complete rundown of all of my shark fishing equipment, let you get a good look at it. But that's basically it for this. You're going to want to start probably with something smaller. I would advise you to start with a reel smaller than this and a rod smaller than this. Try with smaller sharks. Don't jump immediately for these giant, humongous sharks because, one, you don't have any experience with them unless you're fishing with somebody who does, and that can be dangerous. And then, two, you can waste a lot of money on stuff that you're not prepared for. I know some guys who wanted to get into this, went all in, bought $1,300, $1,400 setups to go fishing one time and realize there's a lot of work when you hook a 9, 10-foot shark and then have to try to sell the stuff because they realized it wasn't for them. And you also have to be brave because you're going to have to kayak your baits out. This is too big to cast. You cannot cast this. You might be able to get a hand on it. I can kind of palm it and toss a bait. Maybe 20 yards is probably generous. It's less than that. But if you're lucky, or you can gather a bunch of line off and throw a bait, which is still not going to be far. So for you to actually do this effectively, you're going to need a kayak, which is even more money. So if you really want to get into this, be prepared because it's going to cost at first a good bit. But then, of course, once you get the stuff, you know, kayaks and these reels being so hardy, they last for years and years. I think the only thing that I've really had to change on this setup for the last like 5-6 years is just this top line here. A 500-yard spool is like $50. Or no, it's a 300-yard spool. But I mean, $50 every 5 years. That's not bad. So, y'all let me know what you think about this. If there's any questions that you have, if you could think of anything or you want to know anything, hit me up in the comment section. Send me a message, whatever. You know, I'm glad to talk about it. Answer questions for you. So, anyway, that's it. And I will catch y'all back out on the water. Peace.